Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one about your personal story. We're going to explain why it is important for you to be able to tell it and how you can use it. Plus, there's conversation about cows, or I used to be a cow. I'm interested in that story.
Yeah, or worse, you go, well, this is how I am now, but based on how I've lived, I know I'm going to be a cow next life.
And what would you want people to say at your funeral?
I mean, what would you want people to say about you?
Oh,
That's true. Oh, okay, so what would you want them to say now that's true? And is there anything that you'd like them to say that actually isn't true at the moment?
that's the show. Let's get it. Alright, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, and this is the one about the power of your personal story. There's something about your personal story that is compelling and interesting, and we're going to unpack why that is and how you can use it. And to help me do that, my favourite storyteller at the moment, Sasha. You always tell me great stories.
I love that you qualified that. At the moment. 3 brutal words. You're my favourite storyteller. At the moment. I mean, that is faint praise. Thanks, Ash.
I just like to keep you on your toes, Sash.
And it also doesn't offend all the other people in your life who think that they are the best storyteller you know.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to be talking about the power of your personal story, and we want to talk about the discipline of learning how to deliver it really well, because that is one part, and then we'll talk about other power that you have within your personal story. But maybe if we start with that as a discussion, why is it a good idea to be able to explain who you are, what you do, and maybe something that's happened to you in life that's had an impact on you?
Well, I always think that context is king. So if I understand who you are, where you're coming from, what made you, what's got you to the point that you're at now, what you've learnt, that helps me understand who you are and what you're all about. And that means I can rely on you, lean on you, choose to be your friend. It just gives me a sense of who you are. And I think what people are looking for these days, partly it's ugly that we want to just put people in boxes and go, oh, he's the X guy and she's the Y girl. But it's also because with everything that's shifting around us, the one thing that you can hold on to is who you are as a person. And I think we are all better served if we understand who we are and understand why we have turned out like we have and what the forces are that have shaped us. Because the one thing that you have that no one else can claim is your life story. And I know some people go, oh, but my life's so boring. I've just followed a traditional path. I have done everything that's been expected of me. You still have in the minutes, the days, the weeks, the months and years that you've spent on this earth, you have unique perspectives because you are the only person who knows what it's like to have walked in your shoes. And that's where you get the power of your particular personal story.
And it's interesting when you start to even look at maybe mapping out your personal story, how much stuff you've actually forgotten. We end up just repeating the same kind of narrative to ourselves all the time, or we say the same things. But actually, if you really explore it and kind of look back and kind of go, so what has happened in my past? And what have I made it mean? And really start to unpack that dynamic. You start to really discover that there is more to your story than you think there is. There's the high level narrative of I was born, I went to school, I got a job, and now I'm here. High level. But there's all the nuances that are in and out of that make that story interesting, that can help you maybe bring out points and start to explain concepts to people in a way that relates to them because you've also gone through those experiences. But I'm always amazed how much I've forgotten, Saj.
Yeah, and I think so much of that is the magic of the minutiae. So it's not until you remember back a particular tiny thing that happened to you at some point that you actually realize how important that moment was. And often it's the tiniest things. It's a little thing, it's a throwaway comment that someone said once in a meeting. It's the time at school where your best friend Johnny said, "Oh, Ash, I'm going to play with Michael today." And you haven't really thought about it for years until it does pop into your head. And then you realize that everything you subsequently learnt about friendships was based on that one time. And, I think a bunch of the stuff happens on the subconscious level. And that's why going back to actually unpack, what have the powerful moments in my life been? And that doesn't...
Why do I hate people called Michael?
Yeah. That's it exactly. That's what we're trying to get to the bottom to. But I think people sometimes mistake this idea of having a personal story where we go, what's the most dramatic thing that's ever happened to me? And that will be my personal story. And I remember, when I was first diagnosed with cancer, as you know, being absolutely delighted because I thought, yes, now I can be a motivational speaker because something bad has finally happened to me and I'm going to survive it. And yay! But it became clear to me really early on in the piece that even though, yes, I've got a new audience or I had some new things to talk about having been through cancer, I didn't want cancer to be the defining story of my life because it was just a boring small part of what happened to me. And so don't mistake your personal story to be, what's the most dramatic or, what's the most suffering you've ever had. That's not the point.
Yeah, and that's such good context because I think sometimes when we do have that, my whole story is around that thing, and then suddenly you're in a job interview one day and they go, tell us about yourself, Sash, and you go, well, I used to have cancer, and it's just like too much, too soon, and you can't put that information and words back into your mouth fast enough. Like you just, once it's out there, it's out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you need to pick the moments of your story and unpack the moments of your story and learn to tell it in different ways that's relevant to the situation that you're in. Sometimes you are just trying to build rapport with someone. You're at the party, you've met someone for the first time, and they say, hey, so what do you do? And you go, blah, 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 blah. And you tell a bit of a cool story, and they go, that's interesting. And then they tell a bit of a story, and then we go stories backwards and forwards. I mean, storytelling is interesting. Otherwise, we'd just be going, I'm a lawyer. I studied 3 years. I passed with honours.
Well, I wish that was true for me. If that was my story, I'd be telling everybody. I'd be walking into the room handing out my CV.
Exactly, but if you can tell the story of what that meant and how you got there and why you no longer do it, that's more interesting, or that's more context for the situation. So I think the discipline of unpacking it is one thing, and then there's the discipline of learning to tell it. Because if you learn to tell a great story, you've learned a skill. Not just a skill of you can tell that story really well. You've learnt the skill of storytelling that you can then start to bring to other things that you may need to communicate. So let's say you have unpacked your story and you want to learn how to tell it. One thing I would say is there's different versions of your story that bring out different points, but there's also different length of time that you can spend. So it's almost like there's a 30-second version of your story. I was born, I did this, and here I am. There's a 3-minute version of your story. There's a 30-minute version of your story. Hell, there's probably a 3-hour version of your story for those that really want to get to know you really well. And you need to pitch it or tell it in a way that's appropriate for the situation that you're in.
And that's critical to know where to start in the telling of the story. Because what most people do is they go, I've got 30 seconds. I was born in Tauranga Hospital. My mum, I nearly died when I was born. They start there. When they've got 3 minutes, they go, I was born in Tauranga Hospital and my mum nearly died, or I nearly died. And they've got 3 hours and they start there. When in actual fact, if you've got a shorter length of time, the thing you have to get really good at is knowing when to start, because most often the middle and the ending points are the most important parts of sharing your story. So rather than I always start at the start and I just chop stuff out, actually, you want to make sure you always get your ending, your punchline, the meat of the story, and then just edit the front end of it. That's how you reduce the time. Everyone knows you were born because you're here.
That's That's a very good point, Sasha.
Unless you're into some kind of super weirdo transcendental meditation reincarnation thing where your story is you are yet to be born.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program. Or, I used to be a cow. I'm interested in that story.
Yeah, or worse, you go, well, this is how I am now, but based on how I've lived, I know I'm going to be a cow next life. I'm going down the order.
So this is where you might have unpacked it, and you kind of start to pull out those events, and then you might focus on a specific event for the time that you've got, or for the relevance of the conversation that you're in. So if someone asked you a question like in an interview, can you tell me a time about where you've been through some really hard times and how you've coped with that and what sort of things you've learned, then you can start to pull out the right one. And that's probably not the one about the fact that you might end up as a cow in your next life.
Or the fact that you nearly died when you were born. What's a challenge you've overcome? Well, the umbilical cord was around my neck. And so what I did was, I mean, that's a story that's like fascinating, but I had no agency in it. So I'm never going to tell that story as a marker for, how amazing I am. I think what's really useful, we're talking about having multiple stories that you tell about yourself, not just one singular life story. But it can be quite useful if you think about how we're often called on or invited to share stories or from personal experience. It's just to give yourself some headings. So you might go, what's happened to me where I've changed? So when has my life been changed? So those are those inflection points or pivotal moments where you've perhaps changed your mind about something or you've gone on a different life course. So it's your story about how you turned up at the wrong place for a job interview and how that set you on a path. Or when I chose not to go to university straight out of school and I ended up working for my friend's mum at the gym that happened to be Les Mills, and that set me on a different life course. So think about, what's changed your life or when have you changed? That's a category. Another category might be, when have you overcome challenging obstacles? When have you been disappointed? Or when have you been surprised or hurt? Or what's the most terrible thing that's ever happened to you? Or when did you learn that you had reserves of resilience that you didn't previously know about? What are your stories of overcoming? So if you kind of divide your life into some themes, that gives you some opportunities to craft up some little nuggets to share stories of.
Yeah, that's great. And then sometimes when you've got that little wee nugget, then you can maybe even flesh that out with just a couple of simple bullet points underneath it, that it's like, okay, so this happened and then this happened and then this happened and this is what I made it mean, or this was what happened as a result. So you don't have to suddenly come up with the most compelling story on the spot of this thing, but you might unpack the little wee, we've talked about threads before that you can pull on in different situations. Because if we use the example of the wrong job interview, I could pull on threads of you can make opportunity out of anything, or you never know when something's going to come along that you're not ready for that changes your life, or the importance of writing down the correct details, or, like there's little things that you can just draw on depending on what circumstance you're in. And then when you learn to present, all you're doing basically is just applying a whole lot of stories and examples, often of your own life, that's just backing up any point or giving it context that you're trying to make. So we've been talking obviously about our own personal story, but if we kind of also maybe pull up another bucket or another category, it can be, what is your expertise? Like, what are you an expert in? Because that's quite useful, one, to understand, two, to explain, and three, because it can give you opportunities that you might want to pursue for career or income or whatever it is. And one of the useful ways to explore that is, when someone takes you out for coffee and they go, oh, Sash, I just need to have a bit of a coffee, need to have a bit of a chat. What is that conversation that almost always comes up? That question that you're almost always asked because you're positioned as an expert in that, but you just may not be aware of it yet.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating way of looking at things, because when you look at expertise, it's often not about the content. So people aren't saying, oh, well, Sash, you studied law, or you've got a master's in education, or you've worked in the hospitality industry for 20 odd years, or you've worked across fitness. They're not actually looking for that category or industry specificity. They're looking for those transferable skills that are across that whole range. So more often than not, the kinds of questions that people want to know from me, ironically, often quite personal things. Should they leave? Lots of women come and meet with me, say, should they leave? And it's because they're in this really tricky spot in their relationship. And I might think, oh, well, why are they coming to me? Is it because I'm a relationship expert? Of which the answer is, of course not. I don't have any formal training in that. I haven't had a rocky relationship that I've left, so I don't have experience of that. What I think it is, if I unpack it, people are coming to me because they know I tell the truth, or whatever my version of the truth is. So they're actually coming because what they want to say is, am I being unreasonable? Or that Reddit site, am I the asshole? I'm kind of like the person you ask, where if you are open to the answer, you say, here's my situation, tell me what you think. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what people are coming to me for is an uncensored, unfiltered opinion, because they know I'm not just going to say what they want to hear, which is if they go to their parents are going to say what they want to hear, their friends. They're looking for a bit of sandpaper from me, like some honest, rugged truth. So that applies across all kinds of things. Should somebody leave their husband? Should someone leave their job? Should someone get some help for their child in a particular situation? Should this person tell their colleague that they smell? It's all of those kind of tough things. People will often bring those to me. And so I've had to reflect and go, why do people feel comfortable or want that? And I think it's because they're looking for an unvarnished opinion. I hope that makes sense. So I've been able to distill. The expertise is not in the topic. The expertise is having the freedom to say what I think without fear, and that's what they're wanting to hear, someone that's not going to bullshit them.
And I think they also see a little bit of something that they want in themselves. Like, they come to you because I think they know you're brave and that you make decisions like that. And I think sometimes they have the cup of coffee with you and they want the validation. My husband's an arsehole, I need to leave. They know they should, but they're just not sure they're brave enough to do it. And probably having a conversation with you where it's like, yeah, he's an arsehole. Here's your evidence. You've just told me. Here's what you could do. Like, I think that is just such a great gift that you can give to people in lots of different circumstances, not just breaking up with their partner.
And so let me just close that loop, because I've opened it. You'd be surprised to know that most times I'll say to people, I can't give you that advice because you live in it. I don't know it. I know that you can't change him. You can only change yourself. So what are you prepared to change about yourself that would make your marriage work? And are you prepared to do that? And if the answer to that is no, then you know what's ahead of you. So I'm not this kind of feminist ranter that goes, everybody split. I'm about saying all we can control is within ourselves, right? That's the only bit that we get to control. Yeah. So if you think about, I've shared that example for myself, the question is, when people are asking your advice, what are they asking? Why are they choosing you to ask the question to? And what does that tell you about the perception people have about your expertise? And if you understand why people are coming to you and you understand what your expertise is, then you can start shaping your experiences in ways that are helpful to those people. I mean, what do you think it is for you? Because you get a long queue of people going, can I steal your time?
I think I help them make it simple. Or understand what it is that they actually want to deal with, or the question that they want to ask. So I'll always try to not do a shortcut, but like, I will try to do it the simplest way possible. And I think people like that speed, that decisiveness, that
Yeah.
simplicity. So for me, it will be they've come out, they want to have a bit of a conversation, and they just need a little bit of just how do I get started and what's the simplest way. So I'll give you an example. I had a guy ring me the other day, and he's like, he needed to record an ad for his new product that he's developing. He's developed this cool thing. And he's like, I really want to get it to market, and I'm going to get someone in to film it, and we're going to produce this ad, and then we're going to get it out there. And he kind of just wanted to ask my advice on what camera they should look at, what type of person they should employ. And I was just like, whoa. First of all,
I can imagine what you would have said.
I'm just like, first of all, like, what do you want to say in the ad? Like, what do you actually want to film? I would literally be just getting your phone and just doing a bit of a rough ad, putting it together, having a play yourself till you get a format that you kind of like before you start investing in cameras and editors and film and production.
Yeah, I was so sure that you were going to say, look, just stand there, mate. I've got my phone. Tell me about your product. Okay, we've done it now. Wicked. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's an organic way to get things started. And I think that that's really important, that you kind of say, well, what is the simplest way that I could do this right now? What's the most cost-effective way that I could just get a prototype or something going that then I can scale up, that then I can have a look at? And often people would obsess on not launching stuff till it's absolutely perfect. But the problem is it'll never be perfect.
Market's moved
And you missed it. So that simple advice to be able to get up and running quickly, couple of steps to get going, that's what I'll give you.
And so that's what people are coming to you for. So when someone comes to you and says, my husband's an arsehole, should I leave? You say, no. This has been a great cup of coffee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it'd be much simpler if you just stayed together.
Just stayed. Just pretend you like it.
So we've been talking about the power of your personal story, not just from being able to tell your personal story, but understanding that there is impact within your personal story. Your personal story examples are personal to you, and I've said personal a lot, but that is true. They are the things that you have been through. They are interesting when you learn to tell them really, really well and for the right reasons at the right time. In the 30-minute presenter program that we have developed, we literally teach you the art of storytelling, and we teach you how to do this in a lot more detail. We have templates that you can follow, that you can unpack, and really just follow the process, trust the process, and at the end of it, you'll have this great story that you can engage your room with and get your point across.
Yeah, and so important, depending on the cultural environment that you operate in, that you just don't make yourself the hero of the story, right? Knowing your personal story is not about, here I am with my big I am. It's about having the humility and the self-reflection to say, this is some stuff that's happened to me. I understand what makes me tick. I understand why I'm like this. And part of that process for me was a reckoning, really, was I understand why I'm like this. And do I want to continue to be like this? Because that's a choice. I can either say, this is who I am based on my experiences growing up, the education I've had, the parenting I had, the environment in the 70s. This is who I am, but I can choose. I don't have to be stuck in that story. We all get to rewrite our story on a daily basis. So if in your process of discovering your story, you go, oh, I don't like that person, you don't have to stay stuck there. You can write a new chapter. But for me, I made the choice to say, I want to make a couple of changes, but for the most part, I understand that from top to bottom, I am outspoken. From top to bottom, I am loud and I have a lot to say. So that's going to mean I don't have as many friends as I could. And I just accept that as being one of my life choices, and I'm okay about it. But when I kind of discovered all that about myself, it was an active choice for that to continue to be my story. I could equally have said, look, this is who I am and I don't like it, so I'm going to set out on a new path.
Yeah. I actually heard a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the power of writing your own eulogy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, write it now, how you want to be remembered, what you want people to say, and then try and live up to it.
Totally.
And it's that whole thing of just, if you don't like the story so far, or you don't like how your life's turning out so far, we'll stop and rewrite it.
Oh, we had this amazing experience at Harvard with one of my colleagues who shall remain nameless. Let's call him Paul because that's his name. Man, Paul is so much fun. So he brings energy and life to every room that he's in, and he's always up for something. And I just came back from that time overseas going, I've lost my fun. There's a whole lot of stuff, and partly that's the pandemic. We're not going out as much. We're not having as many adventures. We're stuck at home. If you asked, if I die tomorrow, no one's going to stand up and go, well, she was so much fun. They're going to say, well, she did love to go to bed at 8:30 to read her book. I don't want that to be. I don't think I'm fun and I'm not terrible, but it was this real recognition that I want more fun and I need to be more deliberate about finding it. I want to laugh more. I want more joy. Things have got a bit hard. I don't want to stay stuck and this is hard. So that kind of awareness is what brings it out. I think that eulogy is a great point. I mean, what would you want people to say about you?
Oh,
that's true. Oh, okay. So what would you want them to say now that's true? And is there anything that you'd like them to say that actually isn't true at the moment?
I think what's true would be I'd like them to say they're surprised at how well I did based on the start. I kind of like that. I like the fact that that it's street smarts and I've fallen into myself and my brain and I've figured it out the way that I'm going to learn and the way I'm going to do things. I like that. That's part of my story. It's part of my magic. I think for something that I'm not doing now, I just like people to show up, Sash. That I've got a friend group big enough to come, because sometimes it does feel like I've just got a lot of workmates who I get on with really well, and then I've got that type 5 we've talked about before.
Yeah.
And that you want to have made enough impact that people want to come and that you've added value. That's what I'd like. And I know I do that, but I like to make that bigger. You'd
like to be a little more sure of it.
Yeah. I'd like to do more than book the Chapello Love for 7 of my closest friends.
Yeah. You'd like the catering bill to be ginormous. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's such a useful thing to look at.
What about you?
Well, I'm in two minds about this. Tell me what you think. I would love people to say, oh, she always had time for me. But it's not true, I don't. So should I just let that go? Or might that happen in the future?
Well, it depends on what your definition of time is, though. Like, is it quality of time or quantity of time? Because I think you give great quality of time. You're decisive, you add massive value when people are together. I'm not sure that you're going to give me the 3-day away, let's go hang out and do podcasts day on day.
I mean, I do like to think that I'm pretty accessible. So if anyone rings and says, have you got 5 minutes? I could do with a quick bit of advice. I think I'm pretty good at that. So maybe that's a useful way of looking at it. And I would like, it's definitely for me. It's about those adventures and the fun, and more of that, please. More dancing on tables, and because I'm always up for that. There just hasn't been much of it lately. Cool.
Oh, well, let's both agree that we'll go to each other's funerals. I forgot to.
100%.
Well, we'll make them short.
So, Rich, what have you been doing? Because I've been doing nothing. What are you up to?
Well, I've been in lockdown for 7 days. Self-isolation lockdown.
Ooh.
Because, a family member tested positive with a touch of the Omni.
Oh, and are you guys coming out okay?
Yeah, we are. Interestingly, none of us got it. So it was, one of my daughters, she got it, and she kind of got
I love how you're protecting their privacy. There's two of them, so there's like a 50-50 chance.
Okay. So one of them got it, the one that likes to party, got it. And, she kind of got the not massive aggressive symptoms, but not mild. So just that head cold, headache, like that was kind of her experience. And the rest of us, nothing. So we didn't get it at all. which is interesting because we've been living in the house together. But then I know people that it's ripped through the family. The symptoms have been wide and varied even in the family. You know, some people like snivel, some people like they're possessed, like they're on The Exorcist.
Yeah, so different. And of course, New Zealand, we're so late to this party. You know, stuff that's happening to us now is, you know, happening in other places of the world for a long time. So it's all just new for us. It's all new to know what to do and how to be. And yeah.
Started watching a new show on Netflix.
Yes.
Started watching one called The Witcher.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's Henry Cavill, isn't it?
Sure. So you, look, this is the thing, Sash. This is what they'll say at your funeral. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. Sasha knows who the actor is, who the writer was. She knew who sung that song. The details, Sash. I'm just like, it's got that guy on it. Yeah.
Shall we look up just in case it's not?
Okay, you look that up. But yeah, it's quite good. It's probably somewhere between, I'm going to sum it up as Lord of the Rings, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, somewhere in that kind of genre. It's probably not quite the way
Yes,
to put it.
Henry Cavill is The Witcher.
All right.
Boom!
Boom!
So you know what? People are going to say at my funeral, I wish she was on my quiz team.
That's it. That is good. I like it.
Done. Yeah, but Chris watched a bit of a Witcher. It was a bit of a good time. Really cool to see that Melanie Linsky just won a BAFTA for, or it might be too much for you, Yellow Jackets.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, no, don't. I don't think it's for you.
Okay.
So Yellow Jackets is amazing, but it's got some stuff that's tough to watch. So
it's not like Heidi High.
It is
Yellow
not
Jackets.
like Heidi High Yellow Jackets, but Melanie Linsky, great Kiwi actor. And what's phenomenal about it is she's been in the States for a long time. So she's played in 2.5 Men and, you know, she's a feature in the States. And so, of course, she's always got an American accent. And when she got her BAFTA, I hope it's a BAFTA. It was one of those anyway. She stands up to make her speech and she goes, I'd just like to thank everybody. So Kiwi. So Kiwi. I really want to thank the nanny. And people have been blown away. They didn't know that she wasn't American.
Oh,
And
wow.
that is so cool. Imagine being that good at acting.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, the other thing I'm loving right now is Travel Guides Australia.
Oh, yes.
I just love it. I love the different groups. I just love the friend family. I love all of them. They're just so funny. And it's just that, one, I want to travel. 2, I love seeing what they're going to do. 3, I relate to the couple that drinks gin all the time. It is so much fun. So if you are looking for a show that just makes you feel good and get to see some cool stuff, but what I can't figure out is when they filmed it, because nobody's wearing a mask.
Is it just that old?
Well, I don't think it's over 2 years old.
Well, maybe that's what the rest of the world is like now.
Maybe we'll get out of Gilead and they won't be wearing a mask.
Maybe that could be part of our personal story from now on, is the 2 years we spent in a bunker down under.
I was born without a mask. Then I wore a mask, and here's what I made it mean.